previously at the water's edge.
You've been walking the same old road for miles and miles. If you've been hearing the same old voice of the same old lies, and if you're trying to feel the same old holes inside, there's a better life. There's a better life. If you've got pain, he's a pain taker. You feel lost, he's a way maker. You need freedom, saving. He's a prison shaking savior. You got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things we know just ain't right. There's a better life. There's a better life. If you've got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom, saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom, saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. I'm just gonna keep playing till Craig gets up here.
That was how y'all practiced it anyway, I think. So let's give them a hand. They're here this morning. I am Craig Finnestead, and you're going to see why they don't let me usually do the announcement. So I'm going to get through this the best I can. Hey, we do have a new series that starts today, and it's called Flipped. So if you think about like a house that's flipped or something, like you go into it and it's all like yucky, and then when they're done with it, it's like really cool. And think about if we could do that with our lives. And really, that's kind of the message of Advent. It's a yearly reminder that we get to reinvite Jesus into our lives. We have this really clever book you can follow along with. So if you didn't get one on the way in, get one on the way out. You can do this in your house, churches, families, individuals. It's for all those things. So really excited about the series that's coming up. Now, we have a special worship service. This is usually probably the smallest worship service we do every year. But I think for those who come, it's probably one of the most meaningful ones. And, you know, being from a family where we had a number of miscarriages, and, you know, there's a reason we have 6 years between the kids and, you know, not 1 or 2 years between the kids. So it's called Advent Interrupted. And, you know, we're just thinking, you know, Advent's a joyous, fun time for many people. And for some, it's tough and it's got challenges. And Advent Interrupted is going to be Tuesday, December 7th at 7 p.m. And this is a service for couples, for individuals who are dealing with miscarriage, with infertility. with loss. And we'll come that night and we'll come together acknowledging that Jesus has come for everybody. He's come to heal us and he's come to save us. And if you know someone that might be going through some of this, just really want to encourage you to invite them, bring them, come with them. If this is something that would be helpful for you, definitely want you to participate as well. So that one's Tuesday, December 7th at 7 o'clock. We serve Saturday. We do this once a month, every second Saturday, I think it is, if it works out in the calendar that month. So December 11th at Abide, they're one of our kind of newer ministry partners. They do such an amazing job here in Omaha. They just have a really cool ministry, and it's amazing all the things that they do. And once in a while we'll partner with them either through financial gifts or serving them with time. So that one's going to be on December 11th, Saturday, December 11th. You can go online. All this stuff's online as well, weomaha.com. You can register online. I encourage you to do that. It's a great way to serve our community, but it's also a great way to meet new people. So when you get to be a church our size, sometimes it's a little challenging to meet people. So we encourage you to serve that morning, serve our city, but also get to meet some new friends, and that's really cool. Baptism class, most Sundays up here you'll see us doing baptism. So the next one is going to be on December 9th at 6:30. It's a Thursday evening, so if you're an adult and you haven't been baptized before, if you don't remember if you've been baptized, we'd love to have you come. If you're the parent of a little one, we'd love to have you come. Me and Leander lead that together. It's always fun. My favorite part about baptism class is it's usually a pretty small group setting, and it's a great way to get to know people. So love to have you all come to our baptism class. You can register online, weomaha.com/baptisms. Season of Giving is going on right now. We're in our third of 4 projects. So we killed it on the shoe boxes and the Thanksgiving dinners. We far exceeded our goals, and we had a contact with Hy-Vee this week that they had ordered 200 extra turkeys. So we actually decided that we were going to buy those turkeys, and we bought them way below cost. So we bought it was 3,800 pounds of turkeys. And I talked to the guy, and he's like, "Well, can you come and get them?" And I said, "My Volvo, I would have to make about 17 trips for that many turkeys. If I'm paying all this money for the turkeys, you guys can deliver the turkeys." So they're going to deliver the turkeys tomorrow together. So it's just really cool that your generosity continues to feed hungry people right here in Omaha. So our current project is Project We Care. I texted our administrator this morning. We're exactly 20% of the way there. So we've collected $5,716. Our goal is $28,000. Now, this is our biggest mission offering that we typically do every year. So those of you online, you can do it now, weomaha.com/season of giving. If you're here, you can write a check, do cash, go online when you get home. But this is going to take a lot of us to get us there. We've always been the Millard Business Association's largest partner on this. They're counting on us. So the goal is $28,000 this year. This one's going to be open for 2 more weeks, so it'll be our main one next week, and then we'll close it down the week after that. But we've always been so generous. This is for kids in Millard. It helps them. It helps them get a Christmas present. It helps them be fed when the school typically does that over the holidays. So that's all I got. How'd I do? Scale of 1 to 10, yeah. I got to play golf clap about, was that a 3 or a 4?
Best we can do.
Yeah, best we can do. But, I got an update on the capital campaign. So I can't give you the number yet, and here's the reason why. I have a few conversations scheduled over the next 10 days or so, and I want to give those people the same chance that we've given everyone else to give on this one. So I'll have a number. Our campaign chairs will be the ones who announce it. They're probably going to do it in 2 weeks. I don't think it's going to be quite next week yet. There's a few people I still need to meet with. Now, here's the good news. We do have 178 gifts so far, which is really good. So that's very encouraging. I kind of said we'd probably need about 200 to get there, so you can see that we're getting there. So if you haven't made the gift to the capital campaign yet, welcome home. Really encourage you to do that. Every size gift matters. It's every size gift that gets us there, and y'all have done a really good job with this. So in 2 weeks or so, we're going to announce the number. Just let me talk to a few more people. But if you haven't made the gift yet, if you want to have a conversation with me, I'd love that. So that's all I got. So let's stand as you're able to. and we're going to sing and worship God together.
If anybody's been out shopping lately, you notice that there's problems with the supply chain all over the place, things you can't find that you normally would get. We got the same problem with drummers today. So we have an overabundance of bass players, but we just didn't invite them. But we got a shortage on drummers, so.
Normally there'd be a rim shot there. But
Yeah, but we don't have a drummer. God who was, we worship the God who is, we worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors, he parted the raging sea. My God, he holds a victory. There's joy in the house of the Lord, there's joy in the house of the Lord today, and we won't be quiet. Shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in His place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause he hung up on that cross when he rose up from that grave. My God, still rolling stones away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in His place. We won't be quiet. We shout out your praise. 'Cause we were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. We were the beggars, now we're royalty. We were the prisoners, now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. We won't be quiet. We shout righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Thanks for singing. That sounded really nice.
Family hiding from the storm, found no place at the keeper's door. It was for this a child was born, to save a world so cold and hollow. The sleeping town did not know that lying in a manger low, a Savior King had no home, has come to heal our sorrows. Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart for God to write his story? Shepherds counting sheep at night, do not fear the holy light. You are precious in his sight, and God has come to raise the lowly. And is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart? And is there room in your heart for God to write his story? And you can come as you are, but it may set you apart when you make room in your heart and trade your dreams for his glory. Make room in your heart. Make room in your heart. Mother holds the promise tight. Every wrong will be made right. The road is straight and the burden's light. For in his hands he holds tomorrow. And is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart for God to write his story? And you can come as you are, but it may set you apart when you make room in your heart and trade your dreams for his glory. Make room in your heart. 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 Maybe seated.
Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 5. Out of the stump of David's family will grow a shoot, yes, a new branch bearing fruit from the old root. And the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. He will delight in obeying the Lord. He will not judge by appearance, nor make a decision based on hearsay. He will give justice to the poor and make fair decisions for the exploited. The earth will shake at the force of his word, and one breath from his mouth will destroy the wicked. He will wear righteousness like a belt and truth like an undergarment. Today, we light the candle of hope, a bright symbol of God's great promise to us. He is our Redeemer. He is our Savior. He is our hope. As we light this candle, we look to God with amazement. We look at the world with hope as we eagerly anticipate the birth of Christ and the rebirth of Christ in our lives.
Father, help us be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Help us trust in you that we will find new strength, that we may soar high like an eagle, that we will run and not grow weary. Amen.
Well, good morning, church. Thanksgiving is over now, so Merry Christmas. My name is Leandra. I'm one of the pastors here, and I'm glad that you all are here for the beginning of Advent. We're not actually going to celebrate Christmas today. We're going to do the season that comes before, which is this 4 weeks of Advent. And Advent is this Latin word, which actually means like coming or arrival of something really important. So spoiler alert for in 4 weeks, but the arrival that we're expecting is Jesus Christ. But Advent is this 4-week season before we get there, before the celebration, where we need to prepare for that arrival. Prepare ourselves, and not the preparation like on your to-do list right now, like buy all the gifts, set up the decorations, hang up the lights, like figure out dinner plans, clean the house. Christmas will still happen whether you do any of that stuff. But Advent is this season of like spiritual preparation, where we prepare our hearts and minds to get ready for Jesus. And it's kind of like that song just said that the worship band just sang there at the end. Advent is this season where we ask ourselves, is there room in my heart for Jesus to write his story? Is there room in my heart for Jesus to do what he needs to do? Is there room in my life for Jesus to work in me this Advent? Those are the kind of questions that we ask ourselves in Advent. We need this season of preparation before we can get to the celebration of Christmas. So it's kind of like, so if any of you are traveling for Christmas this year, I'll give you some free advice. There's 2 types of people you can ask to pick you up at the airport. People who practice Advent and people who do not practice Advent. People who prepare for your arrival and those who don't. So a few weeks ago, Sam and I went to visit my brother in Arizona. And when we landed at the Phoenix airport, I texted him. I'm like, hey, we just landed. We're here. And he texted back, is that today? I was like, good thing we got a rental car. We would have been here forever. People who do not practice Advent. But you know, if you're going to ask someone to pick you up from the airport, try and find someone who does practice Advent, who prepares for the arrival. So this is the person who's like, what's your flight number? And then they track it the whole time you're in the air, and they know, you don't even have to tell them when you land. They already know, and they've got it mapped out, like, here's how long it takes to get to the airport, and here's how bad traffic usually is, and do you have a checked bag? Are you going to be on the north or the south? Like, these people practice Advent. That's who you want picking you up at the airport. So as soon as you walk outside, they're there. The car's right outside the door, and they've got the trunk popped, and they're ready for you. That's practicing Advent. So in the same way, I think there's 2 different types of Christmas experiences we can have. We can have one Christmas where we do practice Advent, or we can have another type of Christmas experience where we don't practice Advent. So if we choose not to practice Advent this year, this is what Christmas is going to be like. It's probably going to be all about the stuff. It's going to be chaotic and stressful. Our main goal is going to be perfection and outward appearance and the perfect family photo and how everything looks. And the best gift that you'll probably get for Christmas is something you picked out for yourself and told someone to buy, and they wrapped it and you already knew it was coming. That's Christmas without Advent. But if we do practice Advent, like, Christmas will look totally different for us because we'll have had that time of preparation, of getting ready. So Christmas, it won't be just about the stuff. Our focus will totally be on what God is doing in our lives. Instead of chaotic and stressful, it'll be peaceful and joyful. goal won't be perfection. Our goal will be to have an experience with God and to be aware of what God is doing around us. And the best gift that you get isn't going to be something you picked out for yourself, but you'll actually get the gift of Jesus. And with that comes forgiveness and hope and joy and acceptance and love and all these other great things that aren't on your Amazon wish list. That's what Christmas looks like when we do practice Advent. So in the season of Advent, we don't just jump ahead to the Christmas story. We spend a few weeks looking at the stories in the gospel that lead up to Christmas, right? That lead up to Jesus getting here. So which character from the Christmas story do you think the pregnant pastor is going to preach about? Any guesses in the front row here? Who's got a guess? Nope. David, anyone? No guesses for David? Can't believe you guys would put me in a box like that. I can only preach about pregnant people. No, there's actually a whole cast of characters that come in the story before we get to Mary and Joseph, and we'll get to Mary and Joseph later. But like when we start in the Gospel of Matthew, Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, we're going to start right at the beginning. There's actually this genealogy of Jesus. It lists kind of Jesus' family tree. It starts all the way with Abraham, and it goes down to David, and then down to Jesus. So these are the characters we start with. So in verse 1, it says, "This is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zariah. There's 16 verses of this. A lot of great names. I'll spare you from reading it all, but 16 verses listing a full genealogy of Jesus' family tree. And when we look at this, like, these people are related to Jesus, which is pretty cool. But this is not a hall of fame of holy people. When we go through these lists, like if I look at some of these names, so we have Jacob on there. He's infamous for being a cheater and a liar. He gets on the list. We have Tamar on the list. She had an affair with her father-in-law. Yikes. David is on this list. He murdered somebody. And then his son Solomon, who was a powerful king and did a lot of good things, but at the end of his story, he gets in trouble for worshiping other gods. So some of the people on this list who are related to Jesus, they weren't even worshiping God, they were worshiping other gods. So this list right here, first of all, is proof that holiness is not genetic. So if you're like sitting around the table on Thursday and you're like, oh my gosh, how can I be related to these people? Don't worry. These were Jesus' relatives, and he turned out perfect, literally. So there's hope for you yet. But these are all the people, all these characters that God chose to bring Jesus into the world. A bunch of imperfect people and a bunch of imperfect stories. We could go through every single one of them, and we wouldn't find a perfect story in there, but these are the people that are a part of the perfect story of bringing Jesus into the world. That's where our Christmas story starts. So we're going to look at some of these characters. The first one, like I said, we're going to look at David. So he's in verse 6. Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother was Bathsheba, the widow of Uriah. So right in this verse, do you guys see a problem? The mother of his son is married to somebody else. Not a good start, David. I like how Matthew threw in that little line in there just so we would remember that David did that. But, David, he had an affair with a married woman, and they had a child together, and instead of owning up to his mistakes, he had her husband killed in battle. So God sends this prophet Nathan to talk to David and call him out for what he did. Have you ever been called out for doing something wrong? It's even worse when you know they're totally right. You're like, yeah, I did do that. So Nathan comes and talks to David and says, I know you think you had this great plan and you kind of got away with what you did and nobody knows, but God knows, and God's not very happy with you. And it says in Samuel 2:12, this is where the story happens, says, after getting called out, then David confessed to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. So at this point in the story, David is dealing with this emotion that all of us deal with all the time. It's this really ugly, painful emotion that we hate, but it's called shame. And shame is kind of hard to define. You know it when you see it, or actually with shame, like you know it when you feel it. Shame is one of those things we really feel, like that pit in your stomach. Have you ever said something so horrible to someone that it keeps you up at night? Like you're laying in bed at night and you're like, I can't believe I said that today. Like, why did I say that to them? Like in the heat of the moment, it sounded like a good comeback, and now I'm just laying here, I feel horrible, I've got that pit in my stomach. That's what shame feels like. Or, shame is that like embarrassment and fear you feel when you think like, what if someone found out about this? What if someone found out what I did? Like, that would be horrible. That's the feeling of shame. Shame is kind of that like really deflating feeling when you mess up and you kind of hang your head and you know you were a total failure. That's shame. And I think really shame it's that pain. Like you can actually feel like a pain in your heart. Have you ever felt that pain in your heart when you wish more than anything, like I wish I could just go back and have just one redo. If I just got one redo, I would do it differently. But that pain comes from knowing that you can't go back. And you just kind of have to live with what you did, and it hurts. Like, shame is one of those emotions that physically hurts. And that's where David is right now. He's dealing with shame, and the feeling of shame is probably one of the best liars. And that's what makes it hurt. It tells us these lies, and the problem is it's really good at lying. And we believe it, 9 times out of 10. We believe what shame is telling us. So here's the first lie that shame usually tells us. This is what David's dealing with. Shame says we are defined by our mistakes. So I think one of the ways that we can prepare ourselves in Advent this year, prepare for Christmas and for Jesus coming, is to deal with these lies that shame is telling us, to deal with these lies that we've started to believe. One of my favorite parts of the holidays, second favorite part after all the church services we get to do, but my second favorite part is over the holidays, there's all these great sporting events. So this past week for Thanksgiving, they call it Feast Week on ESPN, and it's all these like preseason college basketball tournaments, and they go play in Maui in the Caribbean, and all these teams that don't usually get to play each other, and it's really fun. So this past week, Creighton was in a tournament called Paradise Jam, and they were in the U.S. Virgin Islands, while all of us were here trying to put up our Christmas lights in the cold. So all week, I was like watching these games, and every commercial break, they do a commercial for the U.S. Virgin Islands. And they like show these crystal clear waters and people snorkeling, and they're on the beach and eating seafood. And then at the end of the commercial, it says, "Come join us in paradise." And I'm like in my basement under a weighted blanket. And I'm like, man, I should be in paradise right now. I can't believe I'm down here. It's freezing. But maybe paradise for you like is not a beach. For me, that kind of reminds me of sunburn. So like maybe like in the mountains somewhere, or for some of you, maybe it's like downtown New York City at Christmas would just be paradise if you could be anywhere. Maybe it's a cabin by a lake somewhere. Like we probably all have our own version of paradise, of where we would rather be on those cold days. And, in the Bible, paradise doesn't have a beach at all. It's a garden. It's this beautiful, perfect garden where Adam and Eve live, and they say it's paradise. And it's not actually the garden and the beauty and the nature that makes it paradise. So in Genesis 2, it describes what paradise is like. And it says, the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. That's how they describe paradise. Paradise is a world where we don't have to deal with shame anymore. We don't feel it. We don't experience it. Can you imagine a life where we never felt any shame? Or like we never had to hold on to guilt for things we did? We never had any embarrassment about our futures. We never had that feeling where we just feel like we're not good enough. That was just gone. I mean, that would be better than the U.S. Virgin Islands. That would really be a version of paradise. And as we prepare for Christmas, Jesus is inviting us into this shame-free paradise. He doesn't offer trips to the beach, but he does say, we can live without this feeling. We don't have to suffer from this. We can experience a shame-free life. So Jesus actually has an early Christmas present for us. I know I said we weren't going to do Christmas, but does anyone else's family do early Christmas presents before? Okay, you guys all have like patience and self-control. At my house, we did early Christmas presents. So when you get home from Christmas Eve, you get to pick one present under the tree, and you get to open it the night before. And I'd always try really hard to find like the best gift, like where's my iPod or like my new shoes, and you get it, and it's like always the socks, like a new pair of jeans, something. So Jesus has an early gift for us today. It sounds expensive. I won't shake it too much, but this is the same gift that Nathan actually gives to David. So go back to our story. Remember, Nathan just called David out for this horrible sin. In David's feeling the shame, he says, I know I messed up. I know I sinned. This is the immediate next thing Nathan says to him. It's not, I told you so. It's not, yeah, you should be sorry. This is the very next thing that Nathan says after him, which is pretty amazing. He says, yes, you did mess up. Yes, you are wrong, but the Lord has forgiven you, and you're not going to die from the sin. So the gift that Nathan gives him in this early Christmas present we get in Advent, it's the gift of forgiveness. And I think when we mess up, when we do something bad, we actually need this gift from 3 different people before the shame goes away. So the first person we need it from is the person we hurt or offended, whoever we did this to. We need forgiveness from them. The second person is God. We usually need forgiveness from God to be able to move on. But then the third person we usually need forgiveness from is ourselves. And in my experience, that's usually the hardest one. That's usually the last one to come. Like with other people, it's kind of out of our control at the end of the day. Like if you hurt someone and you say something, you can go and apologize to them, try and make it up to them, repair the relationship. And, some people will forgive us right away. Some will take a few days or weeks or however long they need. But, a lot of times they come around and forgive us. Some people will choose to never forgive us for the stuff we did. Like that's just a reality. And, at the end of the day, when it gets to that point, it's beyond our control. There's nothing more that we can do. So that first one that we need is beyond our control. And then the second one with God's forgiveness, is totally automatic. And we know that logically in our heads. Like, if I asked anyone in here, hey, does God forgive our sins? I would hope that all of you would say, yeah, he does. That's really obvious. It's in the Bible all the time. We know that. God forgives sins. But even though we know that third one, the forgiving ourselves, is still so hard for us. Like, some of us are holding on to mistakes and punishing ourselves for things that we did months ago. It's hard to get to that third one where we actually forgive ourselves. And the reason that happens is I think we know God gives us this gift of forgiveness, but when we mess up and God says, here you go, here's the gift of forgiveness, I forgive you, let's repair things and let's move on. We say, you know what, God, that is really nice of you. It's a great gift. I'm just going to set it right there, and I'll get to opening it later. And I think a lot of us just never come back to it because we feel like we don't deserve it. We know logically that God gives us that gift, but we don't actually open it and receive it. And instead, we hold on to guilt and shame. So can I tell you guys a story about a mistake I made? I'm still kind of ashamed about it a little bit. Judgment-free room. So in my short-lived babysitting career, I think I did it maybe 5 times when I was growing up. But one of those times I went and I was babysitting for a family, and they had 3 kids, and they were a little bit older. It wasn't that hard. They kind of just entertained themselves, and I watched TV the whole time. And the parents left me an envelope of money as payment for when I leave to grab the envelope. And while they were gone, I peeked in there to see how much it was. And when I looked in there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is way too much. I can't believe they left that much. I kind of feel bad. So this is the horrible thing. I took half of it when I left, and I left the rest in the envelope on their counter. because I felt like I didn't deserve it. I was like, oh my gosh, I've just been watching TV for like 4 hours. I'm not going to take all their money. So I left. I only took some of it and left. And you know what happened is eventually the parents realized what I did, and they drove the rest of the envelope over to me and gave it to me. And that's when I felt that shame in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, they're right. Like, that was kind of a rude thing to do. Like, they were trying to be generous. This is what they left, and I only took half of it because I thought that's what I deserved. And I was embarrassed when they showed up and made me take that envelope. But I think we do this to God's gifts all the time. Like, God says, here's forgiveness, 100% forgiveness. Don't hold on to this guilt anymore. And we say, I don't think I deserve that much, God. Maybe I'll take half, and then I'll keep punishing myself for a few weeks until I feel better. That's not how God's forgiveness works. And, I think one of the ways we can deal with our shame this Advent is by really accepting this gift. Because this gift of forgiveness, this is the cure for shame. It's not punishing ourselves. It's not trying to earn it and go do good things until we feel better. Like, that's not how we deal with shame. God gave us a gift to deal with shame, and a lot of times we just need to open it and receive it and accept that gift. So let's go back to our genealogy in Matthew. There's one more character in there that I want to look at, and she's in verse 5. So in verse 5, part of the genealogy, it says, Salmon was the father of Boaz, whose mother was Rahab. This is the guy that all the fish are named after. Thank you over there. So Rahab in this story, this is kind of unique because usually women are included in this thing. They usually go through father for the genealogy. So when you see this one, you're like, whoa, they put a woman in. She must have been really good. Not quite. But Rahab doesn't make it on this list. She's not an Israelite. She's not even part of God's chosen nation. She doesn't worship God. She is actually a prostitute who lives on the edge of the city. She's really a nobody, and nobody ever expected anything from her life. Nobody certainly expected her to end up on this list, of all places. But, Rahab, she's kind of a character who deals with a different kind of shame. Like, David had shame because he did something horrible. Rahab has that kind of shame where she's just kind of ashamed of who she is. She doesn't live up to expectations. She's not as respected as the other women in town. She doesn't really have a lot of close friends. She's not welcome in the community. If you think about it, she never in a million years would have expected to be a relative of the Savior of the world. She just wasn't worthy of that. That's not who she was. God doesn't pick people like her to do this amazing stuff through. And really, in Rahab's life, we see the second lie that shame tends to tell us, which is that we're not good enough. We believe this one all the time. Like, we believe that we're not good enough for God to use us for anything amazing. Maybe we don't have the skills. We're not as good as other people. We're just average people, and, there's other special, talented, gifted people that are going to do the stuff that, God wants them to do. But that's not for us. That's for those special chosen people. But as we look at this list and as we read the whole Bible, we see like God uses ordinary and imperfect people all the time, almost exclusively imperfect people, except for one. That's who God is using, and Rahab's one of those stories. So of all the people God could have chosen in this story to be the hero, he chose the one woman who's never been the hero of any story ever. So Rahab's living on the edge of town, and these two Israelites come into the town of Jericho and knock on her door and ask if they can stay there. And she says yes and provides hospitality and gives them a place to sleep and food to eat. But these two men weren't supposed to be in town. So when the king finds out, he sends these soldiers around looking for these men to kill them. And eventually they get to Rahab's door and they say, hey, are the two Israelites staying here? And she has a choice now. Okay, either I can save my own skin and say, yeah, first door on the left, and turn them in, or I can kind of risk my own safety and protect these guests who I don't know. And instead she says, no, they're not here. I think they went that way. That's actually in the Bible. She's a really good liar in that moment. So the soldiers run off, and instead of protecting herself, she helps them escape down through a window, and they get away, and she saves their lives. And because of her generosity and faithfulness, the Israelites give her a gift in return. There's our second early gift that we get today. Probably socks in here. No, it's not socks. But Rahab, in that experience, she gets the one gift that nobody else would give her. The one gift she thought was never possible. She gets the gift of acceptance. So this woman who lived on the outside of town and wasn't accepted and was just kind of considered a nobody, she actually now gets to be a part of the Israelite people. They welcome her in, she gets married, she joins their community, and she probably never knew this, but she ends up being the great-great-great-grandma of a king. And then in Matthew 1, she ends up on this list of Jesus' relatives. It's quite a gift that she gets. And God didn't care what people said about her, thought about her. He didn't care about her qualifications or her holiness. God just knew that this was the person he needed, and he saw potential in her. So this is how God responds to our shame when we feel like we're not good enough. He says, you don't have to be special or important or extra skilled to do great things for God. You just have to say yes. That's all Rahab did in the story. I mean, opportunity came and knocked on her door, literally, and she said yes. And at the church, I get to see stories of people living this out all the time. About a year ago, I asked these two young couples if they would start and lead one of our house churches because we really needed some new leaders in that age group for young families. And, at first they responded to me and they're like, well, we've never really led anything. Like, are you sure you want us to do it? And eventually they came around and they said yes, and now they've got this great small group that's provided community and care and fun for all these young families that wouldn't have had a house church otherwise. And when I'm here on Wednesday nights doing youth group, we have all these leaders here, and it's not just teachers and parents and people who are good at this stuff. It's everything from young adults to empty nesters. It's just really a bunch of adults who said yes to coming here on Wednesday night and investing in all these kids. Like, I think about our Uganda trip that just got back. That was started not by anyone on staff. That was started by Chris Syme, who's a member of our congregation, and he doesn't work for a nonprofit or some missionary company. As far as I understand, he works in IT and with computers. But God gave him a dream of setting this up, and he said yes, and now for years we've done all this amazing work in Uganda, and Chris has even bigger plans for the future. Just last week with our Operation Christmas Child, we collected all those boxes of presents for kids that are going to go around the world. As much as we'd love to take credit for that, that actually wasn't anyone on staff either. We didn't come up with that idea or set that up or organize that. It was actually one of our confirmation students that knew about it and wanted to set it up, and she ran the table and she got everything organized and got the gifts to where they needed to go, and now over 100 kids are going to get a Christmas box just because she said yes to doing that. None of these things would have been possible if these people had listened to shame saying, well, you're not good enough, you're not special, let someone else do it. These are just a bunch of ordinary people, and because of God, they get to do all this really extraordinary stuff. So when I think about shame in the Bible and in our lives, shame is really a lot like this canvas that we have up there, which you may have noticed is backwards. The art is actually on this side. That's how they work. But in Genesis, when they're living in this shame-free paradise and sin enters the world and now they have shame, you know what shame makes the people do? It makes them hide from God. After they have shame, when God comes into the garden, they hide from him because they're ashamed. Just like this canvas up here is hiding the artwork that I can actually see on the backside that's really beautiful. And when we look at this genealogy, we see a bunch of imperfect people with imperfect stories, people who would probably rather hide from God that are living with shame, and instead God puts them in the spotlight. He gives them the gifts of forgiveness and acceptance and says, you're not going to hide any longer. I actually have great things in store for you. And what God does is he flips their shame around and turns it into salvation. And not just for them, but for the whole world. Like, these people that weren't perfect got to be a part of God's greatest story ever. The story of Jesus Christ coming into the world. They've made mistakes. They've had days where they felt insignificant, but they weren't. They're part of the salvation story now. So I think the best way that we can kick off Advent this week, we've got 4 weeks left till Christmas, 4 weeks to prepare. I think the best thing that we can do is get rid of that shame in our heart and make some more room for Jesus this Christmas. Deal with this shame that we've been holding on to and actually accept and open these 2 gifts that Jesus is giving us early. So, like, for this forgiveness gift, like, there's been times when I've not wanted to open this. I just felt too guilty. I didn't think I deserved it. And by the time I got around to actually opening it and accepting it, I realized that was there the whole time. God wasn't waiting for me to make it right or earn it or do something. God was just waiting for me. And sometimes when we do something bad and we punish ourselves, we kind of think that's like the righteous thing to do. Like, well, I messed up, so I'm going to punish myself and make myself better because I need to make it right. And in the Bible, God says that's not really how it works. And also, punishing yourself is not the righteous thing to do. It doesn't make you better. It makes you miserable. It makes you miserable to be around, and it actually becomes a barrier in your other relationships. Like, forgiveness opens us up to those relationships. We're not the ones in charge of the punishment and judging what's right and wrong. We, just get this gift to open it. So I know for some of us, we've had this gift sitting here, unwrapped, for weeks, months, maybe some of you for years. It's been sitting here and you just haven't felt like you can open it and accept it yet. You haven't earned it yet. Jesus is giving us permission this Christmas to open this up and receive it. Like, Jesus came all the way from heaven to earth to give us this gift. Don't be like me with the babysitting money, leaving half the gift on the table because you don't think you deserve it. Jesus wants us to have this. Jesus wants us to have that gift and open and accept it. And I don't want us to wait another day to open it. This Advent, we're not going to get to Christmas and still be holding on to shame. And maybe for some of you, the second gift is the one that you've been leaving unwrapped, the gift of acceptance of, maybe someone told you you're not good enough, or you failed and you said, that's it, I'm a failure. Or maybe you're sitting here and you're like, I'm fine, but I'm nothing special. If that's you, God's inviting you, like, open this gift of acceptance. There's opportunity knocking. There's cool things that I want to do. All these imperfect people that got to be on the list of bringing Jesus into the world, God is saying, I want you to be on that list too. I want you to be on the list of people that are bringing more Jesus into the world. It doesn't matter who you are. God says that we all deserve to be on that list. So let's go to God and let's pray. God, this Advent, I just ask that you help us prepare our hearts and our minds for experiencing you this Christmas. Help us make room for more Jesus in our lives with all the distractions and busyness and things to do. God, let these 4 weeks be a season where we're more focused on you, where we find your presence in more places. God, let us start this week by clearing out all the shame in our hearts. The sins and mistakes that we're punishing ourselves for, the acceptance that we're unwilling to receive because we don't feel good enough. God, I just ask that you help us unwrap those gifts. If there's anyone in here who is looking at that forgiveness box and saying, I just don't deserve that, God. The thing I've done is too horrible. God, I just ask that you come into their life and remind them that you want them to have this gift. You want them to open it, not because they deserve it, but because you've given it to us. And God, as we enter into this Christmas season with so much going on. As we go about our days from here today, help us recognize your presence. Let us see the small and beautiful ways you're working in our life, in the way that you're reaching out to us already, but before we even get to Christmas Day. And God, now we join together and pray the prayer that your Son Jesus taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here at the Water's Edge today. As we get ready to go out into the world, I want to invite you to say our benediction together. So as we go into the world, we are going out as one church. Let us be people of hope. Let hope live in our hearts. As we go out into the wonder of God's creations, let us share hope with all those we meet. Share hope by noticing someone else's humanity, by listening to someone's story, and by praying for each other. Have a great week, and we'll see you all next Sunday.
Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart for God to write his story? And you can come as you are, but it may set you apart when you make room in your heart and trade your dreams for his glory. Make room in your heart. Make room in your heart. Mother holds a promise tight. Every wrong will be made right. The road is straight and the burden's light. For in his hands he holds tomorrow. Is there room in your heart? Is there room in your heart? And is there room in your heart for God to write his story? And you can come as you are, but it may set you apart when you make room in your heart and trade your dreams for his glory.